What's up, cool people? I'm Matt Conroy. Well, since I did some thoughts on the first presidential debate of 2020, I thought maybe I'd give you some thoughts on the vice presidential debate, which there's only supposed to be one of. No guarantees on whether or not I'll have any further thoughts after the possible second presidential debate, but anyway, just thought I'd get these thoughts out there before they're completely gone. Once again, I was not able to watch the debate the day that it happened. I had to watch it the next day just because I was. This time it was because I was volunteering with church stuff and couldn't really see the whole thing in time. So, yeah. General thoughts. First off, the thing that is most obvious and everybody noticed, it was far, far more civilized, more organized, just overall less chaotic, really, because there wasn't this constant interruption. Yeah, the candidates were not constantly interrupting each other, unlike what happened with the first presidential debate. So, kudos to both of them for, actually being kind of civilized and, debating more properly. Other, again, kind of big picture thoughts. I'm not going to try and say anything about who I think won the debate or anything like that, because honestly, I feel like people could view it either way. Like, and I've already seen the people who were pretty much already decided on voting Republican were praising Mike Pence literally like the morning after. And people who were already planning on voting for the Biden Harris ticket were more congratulating, praising, giving props to Kamala Harris. So I don't know if you could really actually say any particular person won the debate. I mean, I think they both kind of had some good moments here and there, both had some bad moments here or there. And the frequency of those good or bad moments, I think, for a lot of people, seems to be based more around their political loyalties already going into the debate, more so than actually one person being more convincing than another. The things that I'll say that I didn't see in response to some of what I have read from others online reacting to the debate. First off, to my conservative friends, I don't think it's actually that clear cut that Pence, quote unquote, won the debate. I don't like yes, he made some good points, but I feel like there were also good points from Kamala Harris. And I also think there were some things that were said on both sides that were either untrue or only partially true and things like that. And so really, again, I feel like it was fairly even. I don't know why so many conservative slash Republican loyal voters are pretty much quick to jump on, oh yeah, Pence pretty much steamrolled Kamala Harris in this. No, you're letting your preconceived notions inform that analysis. Hands down. But then to my more liberal slash Democrat loyal friends, I would say, where in the world are you getting the idea that Mike Pence was sexist in all this? Like, I didn't see any mansplaining. The only slight exception to that might have been the whole you're entitled to your opinion but not your own facts quote. But really, that I don't know if I really would have considered that mansplaining. It was him trying to defend himself and his stances and just kind of try and refute some of what Kamala Harris had said. It seemed like, I mean, they both, Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, reacted a fair bit to each other. I do feel like Mike Pence did a little more reacting to certain things and trying to, you know, refute what was said by Kamala Harris rather than the other way around. It kind of almost in that way slightly mirrored the first Biden-Trump debate, in that I feel like, again, the Republican candidate did a lot more of like trying to excuse various things or ignore or like kind of downplay certain things that were labeled that were negatively associated with the current administration. Whereas I think, again, the Democratic candidate, yes, there was some kind of dismissing or downplaying. I feel like there might have been a little less avoidance of certain things. But again, it seems like the responses were similar to the first debate, kind of quicker and, all right, I'm going to say a little bit of something in response to you to basically tell you you're wrong and tell the people you're wrong. But then I'm going to move on to an actual point that I'm trying to make that isn't just a reaction to what you're saying. But it wasn't as severe. Really, a lot of the quote-unquote problems with the first presidential debate were nowhere near as bad in the vice presidential debate. And on the whole, once again, I feel like there was more eye contact from Kamala Harris than there was from Mike Pence. Again, kind of mirroring the Trump-Biden debate. And I also feel like there were in this case, I think the separation of one person speaking to the people more versus the other person was there was less separation between the vice presidential candidates than there was between Biden and Trump in their first debate. Also, similarly, it seemed like Pence, kind of mirroring Trump, did a bit more interrupting. It was nowhere near as much, but he did do a bit more interrupting than Kamala Harris did. And, as a result of that, again, Harris was kind of given a bit more kind of straight talking time at the end of some segments, just because, like, they were trying to somewhat balance out the time between the two. But yeah, I literally do not think that there was a single segment. There might have been one time throughout the entire debate that Mike Pence didn't go over what was sort of the predetermined amount of time to talk for a specific thing, whether it was the initial, 2 minutes talking about a specific question, or whether it was the minute allotted, or 15 or 30 seconds or whatever of time that was allotted to respond to a particular statement. Mike Pence, it seems like practically every single time went overtime, whereas I can think of at least 3, maybe up to about 5, I think, times where Kamala Harris, was pretty much done at or before the first thank you from the moderator. And that was another thing. Like, the moderator this time didn't do as much, really, just pure cutting off. There was thank you. There was kind of a warning thank you of like, all right, you're over your time now, wrap it up. And then if they kept going, which really this only happened to Mike Pence, if they kept going too much longer than that, there was one time from Kamala Harris, but other than that, Other than that, it was pretty much all Mike Pence doing this. But beyond that first like warning thank you, if they didn't wrap it up quickly enough after that, it was just a repeated like, okay, thank you for your time, we need to move on. Just repeated over and over and over again. There wasn't like, it was just like a preset line that the moderator had that she kept going back to over and over and over again. Not so much the actual reaction to any of that like Chris Wallace had occasionally in the first Biden-Trump debate. When it comes to the candidates themselves and what they said and things like that, it seemed fairly even as far as I could tell, as far as what was truth, what was only partial truth, what was more speculation, or like a derivative, untrue kind of party line reactionary story made up based on a particular thing from the opponent. It seemed like that was kind of more even a little bit this time around than it was in the first debate. But I'm not here to fact check everything. So anyway, again, I'd say both Pence and Harris kind of, they both had some moments that were good that stood out. Some of them had some moments where I was just kind of like, I don't know so much about that. And really, on the whole, I feel like this debate was a lot more, like, even than the first presidential debate. And maybe that's just because it was less messy. But the thing where I feel like, in terms of really standout quotes and moments and things like that, unfortunately, I gotta, from what I noticed, things that were actually said that were relevant and helpful. Well, maybe not necessarily always relevant, and I'll get to that in a second. Things that were, helpful and actually like good, positive things to say to the American people. I feel like, they both had some of those. The unfortunate truth of the matter seems to be that, more of those moments for Mike Pence came when it was completely irrelevant to the question being asked. Like, he, like I said, they both seemingly had some good statements, good moments that you could look to as examples of why this candidate would be a better vice president. But, Pence just seemed, his good moments were almost more the reactionary moments where he would try to take something that was said in a particular segment and be like, okay, but there's this. And there were some questions that he pretty much completely avoided altogether. Now, Kamala Harris did a little bit of that too, but I feel like that was a little more prevalent in Pence's arguments and statements and stuff like that. Like, whenever neither of them really answered the question about what would happen, if they didn't get their way, so to speak, in the election. Which I feel like that kind of comes across just by nature as looking worse for the incumbent. Especially because Trump has already kind of made some statements, or is rumored to have made statements, where he will not agree to a peaceful transition of power. And so, if he doesn't win the election, then you have to worry, okay, what in the world is he going to do to try and, like, circumvent the election results? Like, what's he going to do to challenge them? And that's when it becomes more important, the discussion about the Supreme Court justices. But that question wasn't really answered too much either, so I don't know. Anyway, I feel like the rest of what I would have to say is really more opinion or speculation on my part. And I'm really not here to try and get into that too much. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that then. Again, I think that the biggest thing that pretty much everybody took away from this, from the vice presidential debate, was that it was far more civilized and organized than the first presidential debate. And I think kind of partially because of that, and really just on the whole, it was more, it felt more even. Like, it felt like there was less room for stuff to really be kind of like, there was less room for someone to say, oh, you know, this person completely won the debate, just because it was like less extreme. There was less chaos. It was less harsh from both of them. Oh, and actually one other thought that I had, the kind of personal attacks this time around, like I talked about for the first presidential debate, that, you know, there were kind of some really personal attacks made by both Trump and Biden, and Trump kind of was harsher and more personal on that. I feel like the quote-unquote personal attacks this time around weren't really, it was more associated with the person's record, whoever was in question at the time. It was more an attack on, okay, you're saying this, but yet this has happened under your leadership, or, you know, you made this decision or this statement before that is counter to what you're saying now. And I feel like that's more how, you know, the discussions should go in terms of personal records and history and things like that in a debate setting. So again, far more civilized than actual personal character attacks. So yeah, that's gonna do it. Like, share, subscribe, click the bell, whatever. Look down in the description for more info. Yeah, so that'll do it. May or may not do another one of these for the possible second presidential debate. We'll see. If it ends up being more of the same, probably not. But anyway, that's all for now. So I hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you for the next video. But until then, stay cool, people.